Hello there. Today we take a look at two individuals, two famous personalities from our illustrious history, who through their sheer grit and perseverance changed the course of history of this country. They managed to counter propaganda, influence people, motivate them. At the same time, they also functioned as a direct line of communication between two governments. And they did all of this while staying underground, operating a secret radio station. Hello and welcome to StudyIQ IAS English. My name is Bhuvan as I will take you through this journey. But before I start with that presentation, let me inform you all those who are appearing for the civil services examination next year. Well, we have just under 24 hours left. Good evening, Jyotirmay. How are you? I'm good. So we have just under 24 hours left, and that is until we close admissions for the prelims to interview initiative, a first of its kind initiative in India, by the way, which will make sure that you are guided, handheld in fact, right from prelims up until the day you go and appear for your interviews. And what to top of this whole cake that we have for you, here is an exclusive opportunity to come prepare in Delhi for free. Those who are successful in prelims under this course, well, they come here and join us in New Delhi for the mains residential program, where you do not have to spend even 1 rupee of yours. Everything is taken care of, right? And this is besides all of the other positives that the course has. You have access to one-to-one mentorship. You have access to some of the finest bureaucrats this country has ever seen. Doubt resolution classes, concept building classes, the whole 9 yards. When it comes to the preparation of UPSC is the prelims to interview initiative by StudyIQ IAS. Make sure that you sign up for it. We have just under 24 hours left until the admissions close. Make sure that you use the code BALIVE, as that ensures that I become a part of your preparation. All right. Okay, so now let's jump back into the topic. So our story begins right after the year 1947. India has attained independence. However, there is a slight problem. Goa is not a part of independent India in 1947. So what's the situation there? Right-wing Antonio de Salazar. Now please do make a note of this name, because we will be hearing a lot of this name in the next 10 minutes. So the Prime Minister of Portugal, Antonio de Salazar, well, he's leaving no stone unturned, in fact, to make sure that Goa stays with Portugal. The exclaves of Goa in India. You had two exclaves of Portugal, in fact, in India, one being Goa and the other being Dadra and Nagar Haveli, right? So he is pretty sure, he is absolutely certain that these exclaves are not going to be a part of independent India. So the Prime Minister of India that time, Jawaharlal Nehru, well, he is hoping that Portugal will grant Goa independence as world is watching, and that the popular feeling, the popular sentiment of the population is with India. That's the government of India's expectation. That's the hope. However, Mr. Salazar has no such intentions. He is a colonialist. He regards attempts to challenge Portuguese rule as acts of subversion or rebellion against the state. Right? So there was that is it again. It's the ruler versus the people. That situation had arisen. Okay, the people want India, the ruler wants the people. There is only one outcome in this, as we all know. So what does Prime Minister Nehru do now? What options does he have, since he has been rebuffed by Antonio de Salazar? Well, he goes ahead and tries the diplomatic option first. All right, so let's go forward, and then you see straight away the diplomacy swinging into action. The government of India asks the Portuguese government to open negotiations about the future of Portuguese colonies in India, the exclaves in India. This happens in the year 1950. However, Mr. Salazar and his government straight away assert that its territory on the Indian subcontinent is not a colony, but it's part of metropolitan Portugal. And that India had no rights to this territory because the Republic of India did not exist at the time when Goa came under Portuguese rule in the 15th, 16th century. So that's the Portuguese logic for not letting go of their exclaves in India, of their territory in India. Straight away, India responds by withdrawing diplomats from Lisbon, thereafter shuts down its consul in Panaji, and so the stage is now set. Okay, you have India on one side and the people of Goa who are with India versus a dictator. Eventually, this all culminates in Operation Vijay, wherein the Indian forces, all three arms of the Indian forces in fact, launch a direct attack on Goa to basically free the people from these shackles of colonialism. Now you might wonder as to why am I telling you all of this when we were supposed to discuss a secret radio station. Well, this indeed was the setting in which this particular secret radio station came up, and then, as you will see, played a pivotal role in the outcome of the war. Alright, so let's go forward. So, as you would expect, under a dictator, you had complete censorship. No news, no papers were coming into Goa, there was no civil liberties of any kind, and strictest censorship was imposed. Nothing that was inimical to the interest of Portugal could even be said. Forget printing and publishing. Right? So, during the liberation of Dadra and Nagar Haveli in 1954 by police action, because again, this area, which was a Portuguese exclave, did not have a standing military. They relied on local police of their own force, and they could not stand in the way of this armed invasion that came from those who wanted Dadra and Nagar Haveli to be freed. And thus you had a situation in 1954 where Dadra and Nagar Haveli was freed. It was no more a part of Portugal. However, Goa still remained. What's key though is that during this police operation, this police action to free Dadra and Nagar Haveli, what you find is that two wireless sets are discovered. Now these are game changers at that time and age. So you had these wireless sets and you had the right person at the right time, you can say. We will understand that. These wireless sets become the catalyst for the Indian voice against dictator Salazar. So what happens next? Well, Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai. Okay, Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai, who worked for the External Services Division of All India Radio, well, they decide to use these wireless sets that were recovered from the earlier police action, and they decide to use it against Portugal. How do they do that? Well, they set up an underground radio service inside a truck in the forest of Amboli in Maharashtra, bordering Goa. So there you have it, the situation, the setting is now set. Two republics fighting it out, and you have two individuals, Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai, who have now positioned themselves as a major link in this whole interplay that happens. So their broadcasts, in fact, so you are looking at multiple language broadcasts that is coming out of a makeshift radio station. First you have the Voice of Freedom, the broadcast in English, the Goenche Sadovencho Avaz in Konkani, and the Voz de Liberdade in Portuguese. Three languages, three broadcasts. What are they exactly broadcasting? They are broadcasting news from across the world of stories of victory against the colonial forces. They are serving to motivate the people by telling the people of Goa that, listen, the whole world stands with you. The Republic of India stands with you. Change is coming. At a time when you realize that censorship was in place, that a dictator was reigning with his tyranny on a population, well, this radio station has positioned itself as a ray of hope. Okay? So it serves to keep people informed and inspired to fight for freedom. That change is coming, hang in there. Morale, that was key. Well, the world opinion and support of Goa's freedom was growing by the day. All of this news, in fact, needed to be transmitted to the Goan population, since again, there was extensive censorship there. So you had this medium of communication, a radio channel that was operating from the dense jungles and yet was serving a key role in terms of preparing the population of Goa for that eventual marriage with India. Right? So let's go forward and you look at this now. So how did the government of Portugal go ahead and respond to this? Well, they tried their best. However, frequency would be changed every time. In fact, they started to ban particular frequencies. And what Vaman Sardesai and Libya Lobo did, well, they just shifted on to some other frequency. And the broadcasts carried on. So the continued broadcasts from dense forests, well, they were fighting the weather, they were fighting malaria, they were fighting snakes, they were fighting wildlife. It was a sheer test of one's determination, one's absolute submission for the cause that they have gone in for. And in this case, it was the liberation of Goa from the colonial rule of Portugal. So Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai could not maintain any contact lest they be detected. So there it is, 2 individuals, 3 individuals in the dense jungle on their own, going ahead and motivating the public. Now please realize that they were not just facilitating outward communication. To make sure that they had these 3 broadcasts, they were listening into multiple broadcasts a day from across the world. So you're looking at extensive collating of information, compiling that information, and then transmitting it in a language in which the public can understand, relate to, and then eventually get motivated. That's a tremendous ask, especially when you consider that all of this is being done in the dense jungles, right? So finally, you had the Indian forces that attacked on December 18th, 1961, but just prior to this, in fact, on December the 17th, you had the Indian Defense Minister, the then Defense Minister, give a message to Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai. They transmit the message in Goa saying that this is your last chance, Portugal. We will be attacking. If you wish to surrender, please respond back to us at this time, at this particular time, on this particular frequency. There it was. They were the official communicators of that information from the government of India to the Portuguese Governor General who was there. However, at that particular chosen time, as was expected, no response came from the Portuguese side, and thus after the last warning had been given, on December the 18th, the Indian forces attacked. As expected, Portugal surrendered within no time. In fact, you had the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, the Indian Air Force, all a part of Operation Vijay. Thus ended 451 years of colonial rule by Portugal over its exclaves in India. First, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and thereafter Goa in 1961. Now that day is celebrated as Goa Liberation Day today. However, coming back to our heroes Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai, well, how do they go ahead and celebrate this huge achievement? Well, what would you expect? They go ahead and celebrate it on an airplane. On an Indian Air Force airplane, they go up with a loudspeaker attached. They release pamphlets through flowers. In fact, made announcements in Konkani and in the local languages there to make sure that that information was propagated to the whole public that yes, Goa was eventually free from colonial rule now that it was a part of India. So both Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai go up on that plane announcing it to the jubilant public. Later, after the whole process is completed, obviously sensitive documents were recovered from the government there. And so one of those documents, in fact, mentions the Rodriguez report. It mentions that the Voice of Freedom had done a lot of damage with their anti-Portuguese propaganda. It was essentially acknowledged by the enemy that time that, well, the work done by Libya Lobo and Vaman Sardesai was indeed instrumental and played a pivotal role in the outcome of this liberation of Goa. Right? All right. Okay. With that, my dear students, my dear viewers, we come to the end of this particular presentation. But not before I show you one question that I had posted on my Telegram channel. And as expected, most of the civil service aspirants got it incorrect because this is a story that is not known a lot. Okay. So for more of these interesting stories, more of these interesting snippets that will expand your horizons and help you in your preparation, go ahead and please consider joining my Telegram channel and also subscribe to StudyIQ IAS English, as we do a lot of these informative deep dive discussions every morning at 8 a.m. in the daily news analysis, and then an informational content driven, particularly a topic of interest that will interest you in the longer run. We do that every evening at 9 p.m. So make sure you tune in for these two programs, 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. And all of that information will come to you first on this Telegram channel. All right. Like I told you, Anjali, the whole process of Goa getting free from colonial rule of Portugal was essentially to do with Antonio de Salazar, who was the last, in fact, the right-wing president, the prime minister of Portugal. And he wasn't very keen on letting Goa go. He saw that, in fact, as a slight on the whole history of Portugal that was built on colonialism, which is why he did not, in fact, let it go even till the end. In fact, there is a precedence now that you asked this question, Anjali. There is a precedence that when, in fact, the message came from the Goan side to the central government, to their government in Lisbon, that, well, India is going to attack and that there is no way out for us. What should we do? So Antonio de Salazar writes back to the Governor General of Goa that time, the Portuguese representative, and he writes back saying surrendering is not an option. It's either death or there is no other way. And no help was provided per se. It was the whole might of the Indian military versus a handful of men. So eventually the outcome of the war was pre-decided. However, it was essentially the ego of this particular dictator that made sure that Goa remained the last one, in fact, to get free. All right. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in this evening. I hope this was informative to you, that the story of Vaman Sardesai and Libya Lobo indeed inspires you to do more in service of this nation. On that note, it's a wrap from all of us here at StudyIQ. Thanks for joining. Good night.